Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where our mission is to decode a very real and, let's be honest, very frustrating phenomenon: why teenagers seem to just completely ignore their parents. We're going to open up the hood and look at the hidden machinery operating inside a teenager's mind, decoding those wild brain changes and communication patterns that either create fierce resistance or, hopefully, genuine cooperation. If you're a parent, you know exactly what I mean. It is incredibly easy to hear the dead silence, see the eye rolling, or get that classic one-word answer and immediately think, man, they are totally rejecting me. It feels deeply personal, right? Well, I want us to immediately flip the script here. Instead of asking, why are they doing this to me, we really need to ask, what is this behavior actually protecting? Because a teen's resistance, it's rarely a verdict on you as a parent. Actually, it's usually just the visible surface of something much, much deeper. Remember, behavior is always information.
Which brings us to part one, a system under load. Let's dig into the biological reality here, because a teen's mind isn't actually trying to punish you. It's just undergoing a massive, massive reorganization. Think of a teenager's mind like a crowded train station right at evening rush hour. Imagine standing there, and suddenly one platform just gets insanely noisy, backed up, and confusing. You wouldn't immediately assume the entire city transit system is permanently broken, would you? Of course not. You just understand there are way too many moving parts trying to coordinate all at the exact same time. Well, teen behavior works the exact same way. What looks like blatant disrespect on the outside is actually just a biological system under a massive amount of load. Inside that overloaded system, there are 5 major shifts happening simultaneously. They're prioritizing autonomy, processing fast emotions, drafting their identity, seeking social belonging, and dealing with incredibly uneven capacity. It's kind of like a smartphone that keeps rapidly switching focus to different notifications. The phone isn't broken, right? It's simply responding to whatever feels most urgent in that split second. And right now, a teenager's brain absolutely treats independence and autonomy as a high-priority, urgent alert. And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when competing signals come in. Imagine 2 radio stations playing at the exact same time. During childhood, the parent station is the loudest, clearest signal in the room. But during adolescence, that peer station gets a massive signal boost. Social belonging starts competing so fiercely that it can temporarily drown out your parental instructions. They might actually agree with you privately, but they resist publicly because their brains are constantly crunching the numbers on the social consequences of their actions. Now, I want to pause on this idea for a second because it is profoundly important. A teen's first reaction is often not their deepest opinion. It is their fastest reaction. Let that sink in. In the teen brain, feelings arrive much, much faster than judgment. It's literally like they're driving a car with a highly sensitive gas pedal, but the brakes are still being installed at the factory. So when they sound super dramatic or dismissive in the heat of the moment, that's really just their fast emotional system grabbing the steering wheel. The more reflective, reasonable system, it just needs a little extra time to catch up. And this totally ties into identity. Teens are constantly asking, who am I and where do I fit? It really helps to think of their identity as an open draft document being edited in real time. Because the document isn't final, every single comment you make can feel like a harsh, critical revision. That's exactly why totally ordinary family interactions suddenly become so incredibly emotionally charged. They are fiercely protecting this fragile process of figuring out who they are. So even your well-meaning advice can feel wildly intrusive to them. This also perfectly explains the incredibly confusing phenomenon of a teen being totally capable and put together at school, but utterly careless at home. Their capacity is just totally uneven. Imagine a house where only some rooms have electricity while the rest of the house is actively being completely rewired. You wouldn't say the house is completely useless. You just recognize that different parts are ready at different times. A teen's ability is entirely context-dependent. It shifts dramatically based on stress, privacy, and just plain fatigue. So what exactly happens when our totally natural adult reactions violently collide with this highly loaded rewiring system? Well, we enter section 2, the control loop trap. So the crucial point is that this trap is a tragically predictable mechanical loop. Here's how it goes down.
Step 1. A parent feels worried or disrespected. Step 2. The parent naturally increases pressure to regain control of the situation. Step 3. The teen's highly sensitive autonomy radar goes off, they feel pushed, and their nervous system answers with intense resistance. And then Step 4. The parent interprets that resistance as even more disrespect and escalates things again. Basically, small issues violently collide into massive arguments simply because of this escalating feedback loop. The loop itself is the real enemy here. Let's look at a really practical example. Think about a super simple question, something like, can you come home by 7? Teens don't just respond to the literal words you're saying, they respond to the hidden meaning they hear underneath them. Depending on your tone, your timing, and your relationship history with them, this exact same sentence can feel like a totally reasonable, cooperative expectation, or it can feel like a hostile surveillance power move. And if they feel cornered, their mind just completely closes up shop. Which brings us right into Section 3, boundaries built on connection. Because the honest truth is, you don't have to choose between being warm or being firm. To actually get through to a teen, you absolutely need both. Think of it like a bridge. Connection lets them cross without fear, but boundaries are what make the bridge stable. To build that bridge, we really need to look at how we communicate. Control language, the classic, because I said so, that immediately creates a status threat. But respect language, something like, you can disagree, but this still needs to happen, well, that holds the boundary perfectly while completely removing the threat. Think of your communication like a door with a stiff hinge. If you use force and control language, the door is just going to stick harder. Respect language doesn't mean you're being weak or giving in. It's literally just the oil that reduces the friction, making the door so much easier to open. But look, even if you use the absolute perfect words, timing is literally everything. Imagine your teen walks in the door after a grueling day of school, pure stress, and pure fatigue. If you immediately hit them with a practical question about homework, that communication is slamming into an already maxed out system. When their nervous system is flooded, calmly explaining the logic of why they need to do their homework right now, it won't even register as reasoning. It's just going to land as extra pressure. If your goal is actual understanding, you absolutely must lower the threat level first. And that brings us to a fantastic strategy that beautifully combines both boundaries and connection. It's what we call the hidden move, and it aligns perfectly with adolescent brain development. Here's how it works. First, you name the expectation. Second, you acknowledge their perspective. And third, this is the magic part, you leave a narrow but real room for choice. We're not talking unlimited choice, but a genuine choice inside a clear boundary. This structure brilliantly gives the teen a much-needed sense of agency and autonomy without the parent ever actually having to give up the lead. Let's move to Section 4 and see how this builds into seeing the big picture. We're putting all these pieces together into a complete, wholesome toolkit for empathy. Now, what's really interesting about this breakdown is that it's the ultimate paradigm shift. Think about what we usually react to: the silence, the defiance, the attitude. Now look underneath that surface. Silence? That's actually just overload. Defiance? That's almost always a reaction to feeling controlled. We really have to become people who diagnose the deep biological system at play, rather than just treating the surface symptom. Because when you stop taking every single teen reaction at face value, you literally stop that destructive control loop from ever even starting. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this provocative thought. When a teen tunes out, are they shutting you out forever? Or are they simply pushing against pressure so they can finally become themselves? By understanding that busy, noisy train station in their mind, recognizing the rough draft document of their identity, and knowing the profound difference between control and respect language, you really have the power to meet their messy, frustrating moments with incredible steadiness instead of a power struggle. You have the lens now. Go out and use it well.